Ladies and gentlemen, jelly beans and crocodiles, welcome to a little CPW get together on costuming tips, storage and maintenance. We are very honored to have some really talented people here to share their advice. There will be handouts. I will be posting the link to these handouts on the CPW Facebook uh, uh, link, the open one, not the alumni one, so that everybody will be able to download the PDFs. We're having a little bit of a technical problem, but as soon as we get that resolved, we'll get those up there. So everybody will be able to pull down 6 documents of all the knowledge that these talented people are going to be sharing with us. I'm going to go around real quick and introduce who is joining us. First of all, the technical host of the event is the lovely Kat Allen. I myself am Robert Sawyer, True Thomas, Santa True. I go by a lot of names, Nicholas, what have you. And I'm one of the cheerleaders for Christmas Performer Workshops. And then amongst our august intellectual expertise people, we have Julia Clayton of Nexus Design. Everybody say hi, Julia.
Julia.
Hey, Julia.
There you go. And then along with her, we have Angie Good Landerman of Angie's Originals. Everybody wave hi.
Hi, Angie.
Hi.
And of course, I see stacks of costumes behind her. That's always a good sign. Let's see. Along with her, we have the wonderful and amazing and talented Heather Gabriel, the singing seamstress.
Hey, everybody.
Yep. Look, giant scissors on the wall. This is
That's
what
right.
you don't mess with her.
And don't run.
Yes. And speaking of somebody who does not use her good scissors, we have Jim Wyatt, one of her partners in crime there.
Hello.
He's going to be advising us on leather work, and then I'm going to throw in my 2 cents on props and gear, which a couple of caveats I want to throw out there. First of all, when we asked everybody if they would participate in everything, I asked them, could you make your top 10 tips? And what I didn't do is I didn't coordinate between any of them, because what I wanted is I wanted them to all come up with what they thought was important. And so there will be overlap. They're all going to say, hey, could you clean this stuff before you send it to us? Just little basic things like that. Okay. But the other cool thing is you get to see what is important to them as they wrote it. And so that's all going to be in the handouts and everything. So to get us started, and thank you for letting us record this. We really appreciate it. This will be posted on YouTube openly, so anybody can watch it later. And then, of course, they'll be able to get the link as well. So first of all, let's give ourselves a round of applause. Yay! I say Merry, you say Christmas. Merry.
Christmas.
Merry.
Christmas.
I say jingle, you say bells. Jingle.
Bells.
Jingle.
Bells.
There we go. All right. So if I may, I'm going to pick on Heather Gabriel first.
Okay.
Heather Gabriel, come on down.
Hey, sir. How's it going?
All right. So if you would, just tell us a little bit about you and your business.
So I started this thing 8 years ago, not realizing there was an actual business for building Santa uniforms, but I'm thrilled to death to be here and having just a gay old time helping y'all make magic.
And can you tell us a little bit about your background?
I do have a performing background. I started out in opera, God help us all, and then moved into musical theater. So I do understand what it means to put on a persona and reach out, break the fourth wall and draw your audience in and make that magic. What was that?
I didn't hear that. Who is?
No, it was someone else. I've been muting people.
Okay, cool.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I thought that was a question.
Oh, I thought it was somebody on your end.
No.
All right. So just to brag on her just a little bit, she has amazing costumes. If you go to her website, The Singing Seamstress, you'll notice a couple of things real quick. Number one, Heather is the costumer for Toro, the bull mascot, and comes up with all these really amazing costumes. And he's an amazing mascot.
He really is.
They are an amazing costume because we don't know who's in the costume. But
he's a really cool guy.
Yeah, so she does amazing things for them, and then another thing is she is an award-winning wedding dress designer. She's gotten many awards. She does fantastic stuff, and not only has she dealt with more Santazillas than she wants to admit, she's dealt with a lot of bridezillas. And so you want to talk about somebody who's worked her way through the trenches. This lady has done it. And there's literally nothing that I've seen her do that she's not. Let me put it to you this way. When you say, can you do this? The question is yes. And then the next question is when do you need it?
Pretty much.
So thank you, Heather Gabriel, for joining us.
Of course.
The next person I'm going to pick on is Julia. Now, Julia Clayton has her own business. It's called Nexus Design. Julia, can you tell us a little bit about your business and how long you've been doing this?
Well, my actual business has been in business since about 93, but I originally started out as a marine consultant because I have a degree in marine biology, but I've been costuming all my life, and I was in drama in high school. I'm a thespian, true international thespian, and I was on stage in high school, college, and I started in about 93 doing competitions, and I am a master level competition level costumer. I have many awards myself. And then when I came down to California for my husband's job, I went back to school, got a theatrical costuming certificate to make myself legit from Fullerton College. And since then, I have costumed for stage and screen, and I have costumes in several movies. In 2019, I attended a CPW workshop with a couple of friends that were doing Santa and Mrs., and so I came as an elf. I've also performed in street fairs and whatnot in hooded fuzzy costumes. I was the recycle bug in Washington, and so I know what it's like to be inside of a costume as well. I've also created three-dimensional costumes with full heads and performed in those. And then when I went back to school, like I said, I got my certificate. And then when I joined CPW, I started performing as an elf. And then, of course, COVID hit. So that kind of slowed things down, but I've continued taking classes. And a couple of years ago, I started doing costumes. So I'm kind of new to the Santa game, but I'm a very professional, very advanced costumer. And I've enjoyed making a lot of different types of creations. I started doing stuff for a performing company, doing Grinch and elves, and I did
a quick thing. That you've actually worked for Disney and Universal and some of those places.
I did. I was an entertainment customer for Disney, Disney Resorts for 6.5 years, and I keep forgetting that. And so I know the insides of the costumes, how they're put together. We did a lot of costume maintenance there. We laundered the costumes, processed them for cleaning, spot cleaning on them, and all of that. So yes, I'm very familiar with fuzzy costumes as well.
All right, so I'm going to hold you there, and now we're going to switch to the mighty Angie of Angie's Originals. Angie, you and I have not met yet, but I hope someday that we'll get a chance to cross paths in real life at some point.
I hope so too.
So, sorry, let me get my camera in focus here. So, Angie, Greg was the one who turned us on to you. Could you tell us a little bit about your business and about your background?
Yeah, so I made my first Santa suit back in 2015 for my husband. I had been sewing for many, many years, and he begged me to make him one because he was trying to follow in his grandpa's footsteps. And so when I made that and he shared it on the Santa pages and with friends that he's made through the Santa community, I started getting a lot of requests to make another suit or make suits. And I fought it for years just because I didn't feel that I was good enough. I'm sure as many other costume designers nitpick at their own things. They wonder if it's good enough. They wonder what could be better, things like that. And so I did fight it for a few years. I made things here and there, but 5 years ago is when I decided to make a go of this and to do it 100%. I quit my daycare business and put my whole heart and soul into this business and have sorry I feel like I have finally accomplished something that I am very proud of, and I love doing this. I love working with the Santas out there, and I love helping them become the Santa that they want to be. It's not necessarily my vision, you know, I help put things into it, give them suggestions, but I help them become the Santa that they are wanting to be. And it's been a true blessing for me and my family to be able to do this and be a part of this community.
Wonderful. Just so you know, CPW actually has had entire Zooms just talking about the relationship between performers and costumers, where we talk about the whole process and how to make it go smoothly. And so send me a note later, Angie, and I'll send you that PDF.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah, we're all about supporting the women in this art form, or any creative artist in this art form, no matter whether they're in the suit or out of the suit or managing the suit, whatever. We want to do what we can to support them. Mighty Jim Wyatt, welcome to the panel. You tell us a little bit about your business and your history?
And Jim, I'll need you to find the mute button and
unmute yourself, sir.
Aren't phones fun? All right, while you're working on that, I will take the camera away from you for just a moment.
Unmute. Okay, I'm
there
unmuted.
You are. Yay.
You know, I'm a boomer. What can I say? I roll up under Heather's business, the singing seamstress. She's my wife. I've been doing leather work my whole life, but yeah, off and on. I've picked it back up now that I'm staring retirement in the face, and we'll be doing it, you know, full time. But I make all kinds of things for Santa, hats and belts and breeches, braces and bags and things. So anyway, that's what I do. And so I'm looking forward to the presentation.
Thank you. So just to let you folks know a little bit, my lady cat is a huge textiles hobbyist, I think, fan. And she's been studying weaving and spinning of all different types, and has also a theater background and performing background. And so she has been saving my butt on a regular basis when we have problems. And then I myself, because I'm a traditional spoken word storyteller, I often perform in persona. And so every one of those personas that I pull together a costume for, it's pretty much me working with any number of people. I go with hat in hand and say, can you help me make X, Y, Z? And so through the years, I picked up a few things. And so I decided to write the prop PDF that you folks will see later. So we're going to start this off. I'm going to ask the people here, our panelists, if you could just say one thing, one mistake that people make when it comes to storage and maintenance and cleaning of their items, whatever it is that pops to your head, the one thing that is just like number one on the top of your list, what would it be? And go ahead and the panelists, go ahead and unmute yourself. What would be that top number one thing?
I'll jump in and say the retting of fur, of course, that's the one they mostly are concerned about.
Pinking of the fur. Yeah, dye transfer. It's a problem. A lot of people don't realize that our Santa suits are essentially the ultimate nightmare for any dry cleaner, because these two things were not meant to go together. Beautiful faux white fur and red dye that is super saturated to get that beautiful color that shows up on camera. Well, to do those two things, they need to do certain things. But the problem is when the people who manufactured this stuff, they never said to each other, oh, hey, how are we going to make certain that this stuff doesn't go over here? And the problem is what are the Santas doing? They're wearing it in hot and wet conditions, salt, what have you, and it makes a perfect environment to transfer dye.
One of the things that I have found is that they're not using high quality materials to make a suit that will last for many, many years.
Yeah, generally speaking, the cheaper the item, the less integral it's going to be. And this, by the way, doesn't just mean fabric. It could be any of our props. If you use cheap leather, you're going to have problems. If you're using cheap toys or cheap props in your prop bag, 2 years later, those things are falling apart. So, the thing is the average Santa is going to do roughly 700 days, give or take, over 20 years. And every day we go out, we want to bring our best. And so when you think of it as a 20-year journey, it makes sense to invest.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Heather,
Gabriel.
do you have anything?
I'm sorry?
The first thing that came to my mind, honestly, was a storage issue. And that is, you don't store this stuff in plastic, especially down here in the southern states. It will just destroy your costumes, uniforms.
Can you
it will
define
destroy them.
Heather, can you define what you mean by storing it in plastic? Are you talking about the dry cleaner bags, or are you talking about plastic tubs?
All of them. The dry cleaner bags are the absolute worst, but because I've seen Santas bring me their supposedly freshly cleaned things, and they've left them in the dry cleaner's bag, and the red dye has run onto the fur. So that's the first thing. The second thing is if you don't give your suits a chance to breathe, then the fabric will start to deteriorate. Okay. And especially the fur. The fur is usually the first thing to go on a suit. Okay. At least that's what I have seen.
Okay. Julia, if you were to say one thing that jumps out to you, which is a common mistake the Christmas community makes as far as this topic, what would you say jumps out at you?
Well, we pretty much covered, the main things. But yeah, one of the main problems.
Hang on a second, Julia. Hang on a second. Somebody is unmuted. Can we all check to make certain we're muted?
Do you have a background voice, Julia?
Do I what?
Is there a background voice in your room?
No, this is completely quiet here.
Okay. Then it's not your feed. Okay, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I do have Bluetooth headphones that may have something to do with it, but like we were saying with the degrading of costumes, one of the things that I have found with my fabrics that I have in storage, your fake leathers and vinyls, one of the things that can happen in one of these warm, hot climates is eventually the fabric will break down. So you want to make sure that you store those items separate from the rest of your costume, your uniform, as you say, because it becomes sticky and gooey after a while, and it will break down, and those things will actually transfer onto the fabrics, and sometimes they will actually kind of melt. So you have to be very cautious to make sure that you store all of your props and your boots, things of that nature, separate from your from the rest of your costume. And like she says, not in plastic, because it needs to breathe, and that will cause problems with that as well.
Is Jeff, did you find your mute button?
I muted Jeff.
Okay. So
Okay.
can you go ahead and unmute Jeff? Jeff, if you're still there?
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah.
Okay. So Jeff, as far as leather and that sort of thing, what seems to be like the number one mistake folks make?
I'm not sure.
I think you mean
I
Jim.
suppose plastic. Leaving it in plastic. Is that what we're just saying there?
Did you mean Jim Wyatt?
Jim, I'm sorry, Jim Wyatt. My mistake. Sorry.
Okay. I thought you were testing me.
Good job, Jeff.
I thought you were giving me an exam.
No. On a wonderful brogue, by the way. All right, so that might have been a clue, true. Jim Wyatt.
Hello.
Sorry. Number one mistake that people make with leather goods.
Yeah, it's probably storage, but also if you don't waterproof, especially your boots and waterproof your things, they're gonna pick up not only your sweat, but rain. And so I would stress waterproofing it. I came up like that's not on my list that I want Heather to put on my list and send back to you to post. That is something called Cobbler's Choice. It's both a conditioner and a waterproofer.
Ooh.
But that's really good and inexpensive. I use mink oil. I like mink oil a lot for that. But there's a product called Smith's All Natural Leather Balm. That's really good. And then Leather Honey. It's been around for a while too. But the Cobbler is one that I would stress at this point. Check that out.
As a fellow leather worker, I think probably one of the biggest mistakes I see people make is they don't understand that leather is an organic material. It's skin, and so it likes the same conditions that humans do. It not too wet, not too dry, relatively cool, out of the sun, and it needs to be stored in a breathable place, because pretty much the two things that are going to destroy your leather is dryness, where it'll start cracking and everything, and then the other thing that'll destroy your leather is salt, and that comes from sweat and that sort of stuff. And so when you see it, you got to deal with it. I think everybody here on the panel will agree that nothing gets better if you don't deal with it.
Right.
And so if you have corrosion, if you have problems with any of your gear, do not put it in storage. Deal with it then.
Right.
In True's law of storage, the way you find out that you have a problem is on your way to a gig.
Murphy's Law, yeah. Yeah, and if you have any questions, just reach out and I'll be happy to talk with you about it.
All right. So I'm going to ask a favor of our panelists. Just real quick, give me just like a 2 or 3 sentence description of one of your worst scenarios that you dealt with.
I'm going to call on Heather first if you've got a worse scenario.
I've got one.
Okay.
I've got one. Okay. So the Santa in question brought me a suit that not only had not been cleaned after a full season. Okay. Yeah, that was fun. I had to replace the fur on it, fix a whole bunch of things, and he brought me his pants to fix as well. He had not cleaned himself either. So I couldn't do anything about that. But yeah, exactly. Thank you, Julia. So I took his whole thing, dropped it in a bag, held it out at arm's length, and took it to my cleaner and said, will you please clean this first? And then I dealt with it. Ugh.
Right. All right.
I hate that.
Julia.
Wow.
Julia, your worst nightmare besides getting handed Funkorama.
Well, one of my hardest things is, of course, for dealing with fur, but yeah, tearing of seams and things of that nature can be a nightmare, which is why I make my seams very strong.
Me too.
But
All right.
I'm fairly new, so I haven't had a lot of really bad nightmares so far.
Miss Angie of Angie's Originals, Tell us about one of your nightmares.
I think the worst was when a Santa asked me to refur a suit that I hadn't made. And he had had this referred by another lady who destroyed the suit. I got it taken apart and there were holes everywhere. I mean, she had done such a horrible job taking it apart that down the front where the fur had been sewn the first time, she had cut little holes all the way up, taking that fur off. And so he wanted removable fur. So I had to take it apart as carefully as I could and then piece it back together and make the fur removable so that, you know, he could clean it easier. And it was a nightmare. I felt so bad. I kept messaging him and I'm saying, I'm sorry, I keep finding this. I mean, the previous seamstress had left a hole on the inside lining. She hadn't done it up. And I just kept apologizing, but I mean, it wasn't my fault, but I just felt terrible because he was getting back a product that wasn't up to my standards because somebody else had destroyed it before.
That is a very good point. One of the problems that we have to deal with is oftentimes, especially with the more expensive suits, and this may not have been an expensive one, is they're often legacies. They get passed on from performer to performer. So my first suit was an Adele Coca-Cola suit that somebody sent me. And of course, it needed fur replacing and everything. But I looked it up and I went back to him. I talked to him. They told me that this suit was over 20 years old.
Oh, wow. Yeah, this one was at least 20 years old and it was his original suit.
Oh, wow.
And he was trying to get back to the pelted mink fur that it originally had on.
Oh, wow.
And so that's what I did. But also the fur that the other lady had done, I made that removable too, so he could have two different looks, which is really nice with a suit, especially if, you know, you're trying to have a higher end suit with a lower cost. Do a couple different removable furs so that you can have the different looks. But yes, anyway, it was his favorite suit. And I think I got it back to looking really nicely for him and he was very pleased, but that was a very hard project for me.
All right. So where I'm going to take us, Jim, did you have a nightmare piece you wanted to contribute?
Well, leather as a rule is pretty unforgiving, but I try to do the best I can with what I have. I like this hat right here. This is a nice ball cap I made, and I've had sizing issues getting things the right size, but so far it's been okay.
Excellent.
Yeah.
All right. So to our panel, I'd ask you to reach down and pick up your notes or grab your notes. And I'm going to ask you to just kind of go through and just give us the highlights of your notes. So I asked everybody to give us their top 10 tips. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go through them real quick. And what I'd like people to do is if they have questions or anything to type them in the chat as we go through, and we'll circle back and we'll let our panel jump on the questions. But
to my panelists, don't worry about keeping track of the chat. I'll keep track of it for you so that you can just enjoy presenting some material, and then we'll circle back with the questions that need to be answered.
So because I like picking on her, I'm going to start with Heather Gabriel. Heather?
Yes, sir.
Hit us with your enormous wisdom.
Oh, boy. Okay. So some of the things that I wanted to bring to the forefront in terms of planning for next season was, first thing is to be replaced. Okay. A lot of times guys will come to me and say, okay, they've got pants problems. Okay. Pants problems are a big thing. So I've started asking folks when they ask me to build a suit, do you want a second pair of pants? Okay. Do you want a second hat? Because that also seems to be a problem. with guys. Some guys, sweat an awful lot, and so they need to be able to swap out to stay dry and that sort of thing. So those are a couple of things. I have also started asking when folks ask for a suit, do you think you may want to add pieces the following year? Like another pair of pants or like a parade robe that matches, because red, and I'm sure the other two ladies will agree with me, red is notoriously hard to match if you get out of the dye lot. And it's just a thing with red. Yeah, they're both nodding. Okay, good. Yeah, it's just one of those things. And so, I've started asking that. That's something that you should be thinking about, because I'm happy to store the stuff with your name on it for until next year. That's not a problem. So, and I always ask the guys, have you polled your market? What do you think everybody would respond to? Because everybody's different, out there, kind of thing. I've got people that have, rabid football fans, for instance, and I've made, the football colored Santa suits, for instance. I'm just throwing that out there as a for instance. Okay. So anyway, that's my 2 cents.
Okay. Angie, would you like to go through some of the highlights of your top 10?
Yes. So I was telling my husband this. One of my biggest problems I see with Santa belts is that they're not being tightened up so that they're snug. The Santas are letting the belt loops take the weight of their belt, and especially these really thick leather belts, they can weigh a lot. I recommend that you tighten that belt up snug so that you're not putting a lot of weight on your belt loops and ruining them. Because once a belt loop rips through, there's not a whole lot you can do if the vest fabric is damaged. You're gonna ruin your vest or your coat. So I really recommend making sure that that belt is snug and you using your belt loops as a guide, not a support system for that heavy belt. Sorry.
Oh, no, I was just going to say,
Okay.
so one thing to be aware of as a performer, though, is that we don't want to have that heavy buckle right on top of our diaphragm while we're performing. And the other thing is if the belt is too tight when we're sitting in the chair, that can cause problems as well. Because now suddenly you're going to start folding over the top of the belt. So my suggestion is that if you're gonna get in front of an actual costumer, whatever belt you're going to bring it with you so that they can actually check this out. And then you want to perform with it on in front of the costumer so they can see what you're dealing with.
I always make sure that when I make a custom suit, I have the Santa put his belt on where he is comfortable with it, sitting and standing up, so that I can put his belt loops where that needs to be so that it is in a comfortable spot. When they're not custom made, the belt loops may not be in the right spot, and that I see that can be an issue. But working with custom orders, I do like to make sure that that belt and belt loop is going to be comfortable for them sitting and standing.
Anything else from your top 10 list there you want to throw out there?
Yeah, I really recommend removable fur for my customers. I don't send out many suits without removable fur because of the issues with the fur turning pink. And so I recommend that to a lot of my customers
How are you doing the removable fur? Is it Velcro? Is it snap tape? How are you doing it?
That is one of my trade secrets that that I'm not going to divulge, but I promise that it is a good idea to make sure that if you want your suit to last a long time without having to refur, that removable fur is a good recommendation for you.
Okay. What any other top 10 there?
Not at the moment. I think
Okay.
Heather hit a lot of the ones that I would have done also.
Miss Julia, hit us with
Yes,
some of your
well,
favorite top tens.
I unfortunately didn't follow that rule, so I'll have to make them up as I go. But my main issue being in Southern California is since it's getting extremely hot. A lot of our venues are out in the sun, they're in parades, a lot of sweatiness. So I recommend cotton linings. I do not use satin. One, satin tends to stain and water stain, and it does not breathe. So I use cotton linings. And when I can get a hold of it, I like to use cotton velvet because it is more durable. It is, you can do all kinds of great things with it. You can embroider it, you can emboss it, and it tends to also be more breathable. It is a little heavier than your rayons, which are also embossable, but it is more durable because in many cases it's meant for furniture. So for
Mhm.
long-term wear and tear, it works really well. I also make my uniforms with removable fur, and I will divulge. I use snap tape, which the disadvantage to that is it can pull off on stage, but I use hooks on the ends of it. So I've only had an issue with that once, I believe. If a child gets a hold of it and really yanks on it, but generally that's not an issue because it keeps them from getting damaged, gets the fur from getting damaged. I also use in my hats, I use a mesh lining as opposed to a cotton. If they don't want the mesh, then I will put cotton in it again. And I also use removable bands so that those can come off when they wash it. And you can also replace them for sweaty climates. Other than that, that's about, I think. I have used real fur on a costume, a suit. The only problem with real furs are animal activists, of course, and the fact that it can be very heavy. It's very lush and wonderful, but it can be heavy. And the same
So,
thing with cotton velvet.
thank you very much. So, picking on Jim Wyatt there, real quick. Jim,
Yeah. I
you posted. Your notes are included with. Actually, no, I think maybe Kat broke them out.
I
Um,
did. I made a separate handout that has Jim's name on it.
okay, so Jim, if you were to go through your top 10, are there any things that really jump out that you want to share with us?
Well, again, keeping your things clean is important. General cleaner for leather is saddle soap. It's the recommended cleaner for all leather. But saddle soap and then condition it. In fact, I reached out to a guy who posted his top 5 leather treatments, and he likes the cobbler's choice. But I asked him about dyeing the leather, and he said, "I don't dye my leather or my boots or my belts or anything." He said, "I just condition them, and that's enough." And so that's a good tip. But keeping your leather clean, keeping it out of the sunlight when it's not in use, the belts, hanging them up so they can hang straight. Um, um, Spritzing the inside of your boots or your costume in general with a 50-50 solution of vodka will kill the odor that causes the bacteria that causes the odor. That's really good. Works on any fabrics. It doesn't hurt the fabrics. Any fabrics, your boots, inside of your boots, things around the house. But those are the top ones.
I don't know if you've had a chance to try the the Phoebing's Aussie leather conditioner.
It's good.
I love that stuff. I use it on all my leather and everything. And so what I do is at the end of the season, I go through all my leather goods and I give it a good treatment with the Phoebing's Aussie stuff. and I give it a good coating and then brush it down really well. But the thing is whenever you use any kind of conditioner or leather treatment, make certain that you don't just slap that sucker back on your leather item back onto your suit.
Yeah.
Wear something that is sacrificial. Wear it around a little bit, so that way, if there is some conditioner and everything, it doesn't get onto your suit.
Right.
Or if you treated your boots, it doesn't get onto the. So wear something around the house, get it warm, get it flexible, and make certain you got all your transfer issues dealt with.
Yeah, and be careful. The cobbler's choice is a good one because it's all natural, and there's some of them aren't. Some are using distillates and things that you wouldn't want to get on other things, chemicals that you wouldn't want to get on other things. But the Smiths I like, the mink oil I like. The Aussie you mentioned is good. Leather balm, but if you're going to apply this also, if you have some of the blue nitrile gloves, put those on, and then you don't get it all over your hands. That's just a preference of mine.
So, ladies and gentlemen, judge and jury here, we're going to now jump over to the chat where we've had a bunch of questions. And by the way, folks, you're probably thinking, oh my God, there's so many topics here we have not covered. I just want to say that you're going to be getting some documents. One is, you can't read it, the Costuming Tips CPW roundtable that has everybody's contact information. So you'll be able to reach out and get outfits from all these wonderful people. Secondly, care and maintenance of props and gear. That's a handout. It's going to be a PDF that you'll be able to download courtesy of CPW. You're going to have Angie's Originals Tips. That's a document that you'll be able to download. You're going to be able to get Heather's top tips for postseason suit care. You'll be able to download that. You're going to have Heather's care instructions. You're going to be able to download that. You're going to be able to get Jim's top tips for postseason leather care. And then, of course, you're going to be able to get Julia's care and feeding of holiday costumes. So all of those documents are going to be available to you absolutely free, courtesy of our lovely panel. So give them a round of applause. And we're going to open it up to questions. Kat, if you would, why don't you fly through there and toss some softballs toward our knowledgeable pros that they can knock out of the park.
I've been gathering them in groups. So there's a set of 2 questions that came in that I want to address first about storage. Would anyone on our panel like to offer their opinion about using mothballs? And if we're not using plastic to store things like plastic tubs, what would you suggest that someone store things in? And what are your thoughts about cedar chests? Mothballs, cedar chests, and if it's not plastic, then what? Heather would like to jump in first.
Go, Heather.
Okay, mothballs. No, don't do it. Okay. I get why the impetus would be there to try and use them. However, they're just gonna make you stink like mothballs. Don't do it. I would much prefer you to see you store them in a cedar chest instead. Okay, if you really want to go that direction. In terms of what do you store them in instead of plastic? You store them in a fabric bag instead to keep the dust off and to keep everything else out of it. All right. If you want to keep, bugs and things off of them, they have those little hangy things that you can put inside of the cedar blocks, that sort of thing. That will work. But do not store them in plastic. Don't store any of your stuff in plastic. Okay. Your leather things, your boots should go on, in the closet, not piled on top of anything else. They should have enough room to breathe. A cheap way, you can get boot stands, but you can even grab a pool noodle from the dollar store, cut it in half or bend it over and make them stand up like that. As Jim mentioned, hang your belt straight. Just put it on a hanger, let it hang straight. And your bags and pouches and things like that, I would leave them out in the open or, put them in a special place in, in your closet or in a drawer or in your, cedar chest or something along those lines, so that there is airflow around them.
Okay. Anybody else want to take a shot at those three questions? Angie, Julia?
Or did I kill it?
I was just going to say, make sure there's plenty of room around the uniform also, so it doesn't get squished.
Thank you. I missed that. Thank you.
I actually wanted to say that in cooler climates, like I live in Idaho and I've lived in Utah, you can store in plastic totes. My husband stores his in a plastic tote and it's been in there the last 9 years and it still looks brand new. Heather made a good point about the hotter climates. That may not be a good option for it, but in a cooler climate, it is a great option, especially so that you can keep it in a dark, cool place. It's protected and it's not, being smashed by other things. But I just wanted to say that we do store ours in one of those larger Tupperware, or not Tupperware, like totes that you would get at Costco.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Do you wrap do you ever wrap the clothing items in a Rubbermaid tote or a plastic tote in other fabric?
No, he just folds them up very nicely and puts them in his tote. He hangs his vests up, his shirts up, but like his pants and his hats and his coat all go into a tote each year.
So I think the thing we're hearing from our panelists is it really kind of depends on the environment you're in.
It definitely does.
And so the other thing I would toss out there is don't just let the stuff sit there. In other words, get out there and check it on a regular basis. Because if suddenly you see a moth fly out of the room, it's all hands on deck. If you see some mice, if you're keeping stuff someplace and you're not going back there on a regular basis, suddenly you see a mouse, this is something that needs to be dealt with immediately.
And I don't recommend storing your stuff in a shed or anything. Ours is personally stored in our bedroom closet, but make sure that it's stored in a place where rodents can't get to it and where that you can get to it regularly to make sure that it is still safe, water doesn't get on it, leaked on it or things like that.
Yeah, the average Santa, pro Santa, after they've been at this for a while, usually has at least $5,000 invested.
Yes.
And so you need to take care of that investment.
Protect that investment.
Ms. Cat, do you want to queue us up for another question?
I do want to queue up another set of questions. A couple people have specific questions about dry cleaners in general. Would brown fur be treated differently at the dry cleaner? How do you vet a really good dry cleaner? What do I tell my dry cleaner about avoiding dye transfer, especially if I've got a hat where the white fur is not removable? And any other dry cleaner specific advice that you might have?
Ladies?
Well, I happen to know from having worked behind the scenes.
1 second, I have to find you. Where are you? There you are.
I know that Disneyland uses Saks and L&N. Those are the two main cleaners that are used in Southern California. And as you well know, Disney costumes are very delicate. Saks is the high end. That is where they send the princess costumes that have all the stuff on them. And then L&N is the lesser. That's where the like the mouse costumes are sent to. One of the recommendations that I found online is to use a cleaners that's familiar with doing bridal gowns because they're used to more delicate fabrics. And there have also been several gents that have been able to wash their uniforms, but they have used dye sheets, the color remover dye sheets when they're not removable. And then also spot cleaning the fur. But look around, get a reliable dry cleaners before you do that, because I've had a dry cleaner shrink a velvet quilt. So make sure that they're reliable.
Heather, I see your hand up.
So the cleaner that I use, when I found her when she was still working for a dry cleaners, and I asked her specifically what she does differently. The first thing is that her fluid is always fresh when she goes to do a Santa suit. That was the first thing. The second thing is she treats the reds and the white portions of it separately. Okay. I'm not exactly how she did that. Again, it's probably one of her trade secrets that she insists she might have to kill me if she tells me. But everything I've sent to her has come back pristine. Okay. Since she's gone off and is doing her own thing, she launders it herself. And again, she launders the red parts separately from the white parts, and she uses shop air to fluff the fur anyway. But I guess the important part is the fresh cleaning fluid, because if it's, if it's been, it's kind of like old, what's the word I want? Fry oil, it tends to smell and look like everybody else's stuff, if that makes sense. But Julia had a great point. If they're used to dealing with wedding gowns, then they can probably handle the white of the fur.
Hey, I'm sorry, I'm going out of order here, but Heather, so you said shot air?
Shop.
Oh, shop air. Like
Shop
from an
air.
air compressor?
Yeah, believe it or not. I know. I was like, what? Yeah, she blows it up underneath the fur, and it's cool. Okay, so it's not heat, because heat is what's going to kill your uniforms. It's going to kill the fur especially. Okay.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, it's she takes the shop air and she goes underneath the hems, and it blows the fur up underneath from underneath, and it gently dries it and fluffs it at the same time.
Okay, and sorry, True, but so we're on this. What about, and I've heard used like during the season and all in between, a pet brush is,
Yes.
Do you recommend that?
Yes. Hang on, let me grab mine. This is what mine looks like. Yeah,
Yeah. All right.
that's Santa fur. But
All
yeah,
right.
I
Thank
definitely
you.
recommend having one of these guys.
Thank you.
And make sure it's marked for you. I should put Santa on there. And don't use it on your pets.
If I may interject, the flea combs, the flea brushes work really well too. That's what they use at Disney, Velcro.
I like the pet brushes where the actual metal spike rolls.
Yes.
That tends to be less damaging to the fur when you're pulling it through when you run into a snag.
Yes.
Heather, you mentioned earlier a garment bag. Would you be willing to send us a couple of links of the garment bags that you recommend?
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Miss Cat, I toss it back to you. What's our next big raft of questions?
Excellent. Let's talk a little bit about storage again, and that is different recommendations about what kinds of hangers. Should you use hangers? Should it be folded and put on a shelf or into a tub that has good air circulation? What is better for the different garments, hangers or folded or other techniques?
Ladies?
I suggest always hanging, because velvet will crush. Even
Yes.
the slightest amount of pressure, it will crush, especially if you have a higher nap. The cotton's not so much, but the rayons will crush.
Agreed.
Do you want to add to that at all?
Yes.
Go ahead. You're featured.
Okay, I wasn't sure. So definitely yes, especially for the fluffier gentlemen out there whose coats are bigger. You need to get bigger and stronger to hang those on. Okay. They do make them where they're a little bit wider so they can accommodate the shoulder girth. Okay. I would definitely recommend those. And something that I haven't seen a whole lot of, but I really wish I would see more of is hang the hats. Okay. And don't hang them by the pom-pom, hang them by the brim, or fold them nicely and put it on a shelf or something like that. But they do better that way. Yes, true.
I think True has gone and grabbed a couple of examples, which hopefully are going to show up well on screen. What I want to tell you verbally, and I see a couple people putting them up close to their cameras, when you are searching for oversized or extra sized hangers, there are some really industrial sized hangers that are marketed to hanging up scuba suits and hanging up both law enforcement or fire department gear. And they are ridiculously huge and wonderful. And I'm going to switch this over now to put True on the camera. Go ahead and show the different ones that we've got there. That red one, if you can tilt it towards the camera, show them how thick it is. Tilt to the sideways. This one had in its Amazon marketing showing off bulletproof vests hanging from it, scuba gear, and fireman tackle was what those ones were demonstrating. And then if you have your hat hangers.
Well, so I do something a little different with my hats.
I love it.
Okay, let me see if I can find one. But let me show you these real quick.
Okay.
If these things could be a little pricey, but my suits are heavy as heck because everything I have is custom and heavy. And so these are the ones that you want to have on your parade coat, or if you have to double up and put the parade coat over the jacket, God forbid, because you're hurting for space. The caveat is with these things is they won't necessarily go over every bar, but I recommend that everybody have at least, if you have 2 or 3 suits, you need at least 4 or 5 of these things because they'll be able to handle the weight. Also, the thing to be aware of is your hanging bags might not be able to accommodate these, so you need to be aware of that. Another great resource, though, fairly affordable, is you can get these from the people who sell the very nice Italian suits. And the nice thing about these is they're fairly wide and they really support the shoulders. And the other beautiful thing is unlike this has a swivelable head, which is really nice when you have to pack in a Z rack full of costumes. So you can get these, and these are also set up to hold pants. They have a little band here. So these are handy. But these will not hold the full weight that the big Rhino fireman hangers won't. Now, for lighter hangers, I recommend these. They're fairly wide, and the nice thing is the head swivels, and they're nice and light. And so if you're putting your waistcoats and that sort of thing on there, these are great, and they're fairly affordable. The other nice thing is that with these hooks, you can hang your, if you have pants on suspenders, you can hang your suspenders through here. You put one loop of your pants on each side, and then you put the center loop of the pants over the center. And so they'll support very well. I'll go find an example of one of my hangers, and I'll be right back.
And a bunch of things on my screen just stopped. Let's see if I can get my screen to come back. Okay, let's see one more try. All right. Chrome hates me right now, apparently. So, place myself on screen. Haha. Pat, once I get Chrome to stop misbehaving, I will have that link as well with the PDFs that we're. And True has manufactured his own to air out and hang and dry his hats. So I think that's what he's.
Sorry, didn't know we were going to be doing this, but this I kind of discovered just by emergency. You just take a standard hanger like this and you bend it to the right shape, And then what you can do is you turn the head this way. And let me bend this in. Look, it's show and tell. And then I could put this inside the hat, and it suspends the hat and lets it dry out, which when you come back from a gig, your hat is always soaked. So this is a really easy, cheap way to keep the hat in a position where it can dry out. And it works out pretty well. Now, you probably wouldn't want to do this long term, but if you need a way to air out the hat, this is a great way to do it.
Alrighty, let's see if my, I keep pressing all the wrong buttons. Sorry about that. One, replace spotlight. Hello again. Hope you all can still hear me. I know that I'm going to bring back the list of questions that we had, dry cleaning and some of our storage and hanging things. And now it's kind of a question about, so what do you do if the velvet has gotten bruised or flattened? Is velvet, and if the fur on my hat is always some ways to keep that looking good. Is there anyone who'd like to talk about repair velvet that's been crushed or the mats on a hat?
Well, believe it or not, velvet is actually very forgiving. If it hasn't been completely damaged, you can steam it and brush it. If you're going to press it, you want to make sure you use a velvet board. They're not always the best, but you can also use a towel. Still, if you need to really press good wrinkles out of it. But steaming is, velvet is very, very forgiving in the respect of steaming. As far as your fur goes, like I say, removable bands in your hats are good. Fur can be spot cleaned with baby wipes or fabric cleaning, facial cleansing towels, but you definitely don't want to put any heat on it. The way that Disney dries their furs, we hang them in front of fans. And so you can do spot cleaning and hang them in front of a fan, and it also helps you fluff them up.
Heather?
Yes.
Talking
about
Do you have any
fur?
suggestions for repairs?
Yeah.
Okay.
I love the heavy sigh.
A lot. Okay. So for matted fur, the best thing that I've come across is I'm echoing what Julia just said, is to steam it and then very gently go at it with the brush. Okay. If you've got some stains, I've found that, OxyClean works really well for hats. I've also found that, what's it called? I hate it when this happens. Hand sanitizer will also work to get stains out. It works really well on makeup. For really stubborn stains that just won't come out, Resolve carpet cleaner. Okay.
Interesting. All right. Well, folks, we've been at this for about an hour now. And so because we don't want the YouTube segment to be too long, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go around the panel real quick and ask them for their, if you really wanted to say one thing to all the people who are going to be pounding down your door and asking you to make things, if you had one request of those people, what would you ask of them? I'll start with Angie's Originals.
Sorry, I've been a little quiet. I'm kind of in a lot of pain right now from my surgery.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
You're fine. I just had my shoulder redone a week and a half ago, so just kind of hurting.
Sorry. I'm working on the knee and the hip.
I said I'd do it thinking that I may be a little bit better at this point, but I'm just kind of reaching my max. Restate that question. I'm so sorry about that.
If you could ask one thing of your customers, what would it be?
I could ask one thing, that when they take their measurements for a custom order to have it professionally done or done by somebody who knows how to sew. I do. I send out pictures of exactly how it should be done, instructions of exactly how it should be done. And I still have to question some measurements that seem completely wrong. So mine is, make sure those measurements are correct, because that's on you, not on me.
Okay. Go back to finding some medication for your poor shoulder. Heather
Thank you.
Gabriel, this is your chance. You have the magic wand. If you could ask one thing of all the people who you work with, what would it be?
Well, Angie hit on a very big one, so I'll let that stand. Thank you, Angie. Because you saw me over here nodding my head vigorously. Okay. The other thing that I really would like is for people to do their homework before they come to me. And I understand kind of not, being a little at a loss because you've never had a custom suit done. But if you have no clue as to what your vision of the final product should be, that you're leaving it all in my hands. And if you don't like what I come up with, I had no direction to begin with, if that makes sense.
In the when I created the working with costumers handout that I created for CPW, one of the things that was very apparent is that people don't realize that when they reach out to a costumer, the costumer can't spend a whole lot of time trying to create items for you for no money. They don't have the bandwidth. They literally, when they're not actually creating something or actually sewing something, they're not making any money. And so if they spend 10 phone calls a day trying to help people dial in what they want, they still haven't been paid yet. And so we need to make certain that we do our due diligence before we ever talk to the customer. And then when it comes time, can you do this? How should I do that? That's when they're going to come in and give you the critical information you need. All right, Miss Julia, care, maintenance, storage. What if you had one thing that you could ask for?
Well, those are the two biggies that I appreciate. Thirdly, treat your customers with kindness. When you're having a special project done, remember, you're not going to get it cheaper than you're going to get it on the internet. Costumes cost a lot of money. Fabrics are expensive now. Things are getting more expensive. And like you say, we spend a lot of time on the road doing research, doing grafting of patterns, sizing, fitting, and a lot of times that's not in the price. And so beware that, put the money aside, beware that it's going to cost more because it's a specialty item. You're not getting it cheaper because you're having somebody make it for you.
All right. Mr. Wyatt, if you could ask one thing of people, and this can be about either how they order something from you or how they're going to store the stuff that you give them after you beautifully make it, what would you like to toss out there?
Well, I'll echo what somebody's already said. Have it in your mind what you want before you ask for it. And I'll be honest with you. If I can't do it, I'll tell you I can't do it. But as far as storage, keep your leather conditioned, clean and conditioned. And if you just do that one thing, it's like keeping your oil changed in your car. If you just condition the leather, you won't have any problems.
All right. Thank you, sir. So if I could toss out one thing that I think is really important is every time you roll out for a season, you go through the same fire drill. You're pulling your stuff out, you're checking it, so on and so forth. When you're putting it away, you're going through it, you're checking it. Do an inventory. One of the best things you can do is just sit down with somebody else and write up, this was in my prop bag, what items? And so when you go through your prop bag and you go, okay, well, here's the whirly thing that I used to get kids' attention. Well, that thing cost you $10. and the battery in it is probably not going to last during that whole year. So you need to plan ahead. Oh, I need to buy another whirly thing. If you pick up your magic key and there are a couple of stones missing, that's when you notice it, is when you go through your inventory and you go through everything and you write down, this is where I keep it. This is what needs to be done. And for instance, if that magic key has a leather strap, you treat the strap and you polish the key. But one of the best things you can do is to take care of all your items is do an inventory. And when you do the inventory, inspect everything in a well-lit area. Have somebody else take the notes while you do the inspecting. Don't toggle back and forth. And what will happen is that 3 or 4 weeks before you're getting into your season, that's the time to pull everything out and look at it again. Because if there is a problem, if suddenly you need a Hail Mary, oh my God, I didn't see this big rip here, that's when you're going to need time to be able to fix whatever you find. And let's say, for instance, for whatever reason, suddenly you realize you're lacking gloves. Okay, guess what? You're going to need 3 weeks to get those gloves in before your season. So don't wait until the last minute, and do an inventory as you put stuff away. And when you pull stuff out, update that inventory. That's my tips for props and that sort of thing. So, ladies and gentlemen, jelly beans and crocodiles, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. If we may, I'm going to say a big round of applause. And just so you know, there's so many topics and there's so many notes. What we're going to do is we're going to grab the information from the chat and try to get all those questions somewhere. And then I don't know how we'll answer this because I can't ask these ladies to do all the answering. They're not being paid to do this. But what we'll do is we'll try to get a listing of all the questions, and then we'll put it up there where we can have our CPW alumni or perhaps people who want to answer those questions. But all our panelists here were very nice to all contribute their top 10, which is going to cover a lot of these questions. So we're going to be posting the notes for that. I want to give a big shout out to Greg Mackler for helping make this event happen. I want to say thank you very much to Angie, who even wounded and post-surgery was willing to step up. I want to give a big shout out to Heather Gabriel, of Angie's Originals. And in the PDF, we're going to have everybody's contact information. Heather Gabriel, the singing seamstress, for all her wisdom and knowledge and sharing. I want to say thank you very much to Julia, very much of Nexus Design. She's out here on the West Coast. Angie, where are you located?
Sorry, had to unmute. I'm in Idaho Falls, Idaho.
Okay, and Heather Gabriel, you're in Texas, correct?
Houston, Texas.
Okay, and Julia, you're out here in California, correct?
Anaheim, California.
Jim, I'm assuming you're somewhere near Heather?
Yeah, my wife. Actually, my leather is called Dragonworks leather, but we kind of roll up under Singing Seamstress.
Yeah,
DBA thing.
And I believe the handout, it says Jim's top tips for postseason leather care. So
and I want to add the cobbler's choice to the top of the list. I didn't get it on there until later.
I'm gonna add it to it before it's downloadable.
Yeah.
All right.
And the vodka mixture, you can say 50-50 vodka and water to get rid of odors.
So I'm going to throw in a caveat on that, Jim. For my Santa spray, I don't mix it with water.
Okay, straight vodka.
I do use the cheapest vodka, and then I add 1 drop of peppermint and 1 drop of vanilla. One drop for a whole quart.
Wow.
And I have to. Yes.
I was going to say that.
I wanted to add, Disney uses something, haven't been able to find it online, but it's called Asepticare. And it's something that they spray their suits with. There is like a dry cleaning, kind of a dry cleaning solution that they spray in between dry cleanings at Disney to keep the sweat odors and the bacteria down. And theaters also use 100% alcohol to spray their suits with in between.
Yeah, the main reason that first of all, don't use isopropyl alcohol. It's nasty stuff. You want to use ethanol, aka vodka. So a high proof vodka or a high proof gin can do it. And what you're sorry, I'm fuzzing out here. Hello, come back here, camera.
Don't worry about it, Drew. Just keep going.
Right, but the thing is with the Santa spray, Kat will tell you it's so much better for you than the Febreze or the Lysol. You know, that stuff is just it's toxic in the long term. And the Santa spray, my lady is very sensitive to scents, and I have to tell you, she's happy with it. So that's the highest compliment I can give it. And it's
Well,
it's done a wonderful job.
I've used the vodka and water in theater and actually sprayed things that had already started stinking and they didn't stink anymore. So
Yep.
it really, really does work.
It really does work. All right. So on behalf of Christmas Performer Workshops and our amazing panelists, I just want to say thank you to everyone. I want to give a big shout out again to Greg. I want to give a big shout out to my lady, Kat Ellen, for being our technical director. And I just want to say to everyone out there, take care of your gear and it will take care of you. We have a communal brand. Every time we roll out and we look awesome, we raise our brand. And if you see somebody who is having a problem, you know, looking bad, frumpy, what have you, take the time to reach out to them and then also kick them to the resources we're going to provide here. And to all of you, thank you for making magic happen. I say Merry, you say Christmas. Merry!
Christmas.
Merry!
Christmas.
I say jingle, you say bells. Jingle!
Bells.
Jingle!
Bells.
And with that, we're going to shut it down. We'll post the links for all of this. And thank you all so very much.
Thank you for this, Robert.
Thank you, Santa True and
Thank
Kat.
you.
and all the panel.
We've got to go.